Hola and welcome to Taco Tuesday. Thanks for everyone who has already joined. It was super fun to see people already active in the chat before the show even started. That does my heart good. All right, we are doing something very different this week, and it's probably something that if everybody enjoys, we will be doing a lot more frequently, and that is just an actual live chat and me interacting with the chat, taking questions, talking about topics that you guys want to talk about. You know, I love doing the format that we've been doing previously with the teachings and things like that, but it's a lot of work. It's tons of research, and it's putting together those PowerPoints, and a lot of times I am proactive and I get all my ducks in a row and I'm able to do it in advance. But it was a super, super busy week and weekend for me. So I hope that this will not only just be a little bit of a break for me, but it'll be something really fun for everybody. One of the things that drives me a little nuts when we do the regular format is because I'm in the middle of, my teaching and my eyesight's not great and the chat is very small on my screen, is I do not get to interact with the chat live as much as I want to. And that's kind of the point of these live chats. And so hopefully today we will be able to rectify that. I did put a note, and I see that some people are already putting comments in all caps. If you type something in the live chat in all caps, Katie is going to star that and put that aside for me. And then I'm going to know that that's something that someone wants to discuss or a question that they have. And that's what this whole show is going to be about. I really want it to be driven by the things that you guys want to talk about. So as usual, I do have a bunch of little announcements in case you're new to the channel or you've never been here on Taco Tuesday before, or you don't know who I am. This is the first time you have seen my channel. I want everyone to know that I have a Substack account. I do not charge for my Substack. You can subscribe for free. You can either read my articles every Monday morning in the app or on the website, or you can sign up for email notifications every Monday morning. You'll just get a new article from me in your inbox. So everybody hop on over to Substack, sign up there. I tend to write about things that are fringy, conspiratorial, things that are maybe in the news, kind of like pop culture kind of things. I like to write a lot about AI and tech, dream tech, nightmares, all that kind of stuff through a biblical lens. So if that stuff is right up your alley, check out my Substack account. You can also find me on Instagram. I am on TikTok and X, but I very frequently, I infrequently rather am over there. I kind of have all my ducks all my eggs in one basket with mainly Instagram when it comes to social media. So if you want to sign up, follow me on Instagram. I'm Vicki Joy Author on Instagram. I think I'm also Vicki Joy Author on TikTok and X and Threads and all of that good stuff. So all right, some of you may have noticed that I put up a YouTube poll on my channel a couple days ago, and I'm asking for feedback. If you want to hop over after the live stream and contribute to the poll, I'm going to be doing a ton of traveling starting in the month of May. And so there's going to be a lot of times where doing a live stream on Tuesday might be difficult because I might be in transit. And so I'm asking people that on those Tuesdays that I can't be here live, what is your preference? A week off, no Taco Tuesday, a guest host. I have a bunch of wonderful, very well-informed friends that I'm sure you would love listening to that I could get on here that could sub in for me now and then. And then the third option, and we did this once, I think 2 weeks ago, and let me know if that worked out for you. We can still have a live chat where you come on and you still have the capacity to watch live and chat live, but I'm not live. I'm off doing my thing and you're watching a pre-record. So you can interact with each other, but not with me. So those are the three options. If you want to hop over to that YouTube poll, that will help me plan for May and for the summer and the fall months where I have a lot of conferences. And speaking of conferences, I do have several conferences again, starting, I believe, end of July. And some of them I will be speaking at. Some of them I will only be there with a book table. I do have, I think, at least 3 of them up on my website now, VickiJoyAnderson.com. I believe there is an events tab. And if you go to that tab, it should always be updated with where I'm going to be, with links that will take you directly to the websites where you can register and all of that information. So be sure to check that out. Like I said, as of now, I'm not going to be anywhere until end of July. But I will be updating that as more things get added to the calendar in 2026. So, all right. A couple weeks ago, when I was not live and there was a pre-record, the reason I was pre-recording is I was doing an interview with Basil and Gons over at Canary Cry Radio, which was a real bucket list check off for me. I have wanted to connect with those guys for quite some time. So we had a blast. That episode is now available. I think it went up 3 or 4 days ago. If you Google Canary Cry Radio, they're pretty much out there on every platform, Apple, Spotify, all of those things. It is episode 193. And it was released on March 27. I think the title is pretty vague. It's something like Sleep Paralysis with Vicki Joy Anderson, something like that. But it's either the most recent show or there's maybe one more show that's been released since then. But it's going to be pretty much up at the top of the podcast list if you just Google Canary Cry Radio. So go and check that out. Okay, couple of things. These are just some little teasers about some things that are coming out or might be coming out in the future. I've got a couple of books coming out this summer. One for sure is coming out in June, and that is called From Eden to AI, How Fallen Angels and Ancient Idolatry Are Ensnaring Humanity Through Modern Technology. So keep your eyes peeled. My socials and things are going to be hit hard, probably starting in May, advertising this book. I'm assuming you're going to be able to get it through Destiny Image Publishing as well as Amazon. And I'm hoping that, unlike They Only Come Out at Night, that this will be available on Amazon and in the Kindle format and all of that good stuff. Forward by Derek Gilbert. Thank you so much, Derek. And really looking forward to this coming out. It'll be fun to talk about some different topics. And this topic, too, allows me to bring a lot more of theology and biblical history and anthropology into the discussion, which is stuff that I love to chat about. Now, there is a long-awaited sequel to They Only Come Out at Night, also coming out. Now, this one I am self-publishing, which was a choice I made because if you thought They Only Came Out at Night was a little out there, a little fringy, a little weird, this one goes way, way out of orbit. But I will tell you, given the hundreds of people that I've talked to, amongst those that have had sleep paralysis their entire life, this is actually a very common thing. So if it doesn't apply to you, you know, that's fine, but just understand that there are people out there that are asking for this information. It's going very specifically honing in into the sleep paralysis phenomenon, and it's talking specifically about what people would call the nightmare or the incubus, the succubus, the spirit spouse. I don't really like the spirit spouse phrase because that's a shamanistic term, and it's a very specific sort of like a spirit guide that shamans use. And that's not exactly what we're talking about here. We're talking about entities or demonic beings that attach to people at a very young age. And the sleep paralysis experiences are very sexual. There is assaults involved. And there's also a piece that is not well spoken about, where a lot of times in the physical realm, in the real world, relationships are affected and sabotaged, and marriages and dating relationships and abilities to stay marriage or sexual relationships within the marriage are sabotaged. And I've just talked to some heart-wrenching stories. And so that sequel, I'm hoping that it will be out by June or July, because I would like it available by the time I start traveling and I will be at book tables. This is just a rough draft of the cover. In fact, there's even a spelling error on it, so ignore it. I just wanted to be able to put it up here so you could get an idea. You can obviously see here that it has a lot of visual similarities to They Only Come Out at Night book cover. So this is called Vow of the Vampire, Conjugal Nightmares and the Nefarious Nuptials of Nosferatu. And interestingly, what I'm doing in this book, I'm not just gratuitously talking about sexual escapades in the spirit realm and astral sex and all this nonsense. I am specifically doing a compare and contrast because the movie franchise Nosferatu, specifically the most recent, I think it was the December 2024, the Eggers version that came out, they are giving away the entire truth in plain sight, rubbing your nose in it agenda of what these incubus demons are doing to people with sleep paralysis and night terrors. So what I'm doing is I am on one hand exposing all of the esoteric hidden things in that movie that I think need to be pointed out. This isn't just a little vampire movie. They are giving away the whole deal here. And ironically, where I am biblically going to be contrasting that evil and that deception with truth is Song of Solomon. If you think that Song of Solomon is a bizarrely placed erotic love poem in the Old Testament, I am telling you that in my research, I have discovered that hidden in the subtext of Song of Solomon is a spiritual warfare handbook, specifically nocturnal spiritual warfare of this kind. So keep your eyes peeled this summer for From Eden to AI and Vow of the Vampire. I'm super excited about both of those projects. All right. I think I'm going to leave it at that. I've got some other future projects that I'm going to be working on, but I'm going to save that until we get closer to release. So here we are. Perfect timing, Katie. All right. Question. Will your books be sold also as EPUB reader ebook? I can buy or use Kindle in my country, only ebook reader if not able to buy book. Yes. Great question. And thanks for asking that, because many of you know They Only Come Out at Night is not on Amazon. And I have been working fervently for 4 years to rectify that situation. I have the full support and thumbs up of L.A. Marzulli, who is the publisher who published the book. It's that there was some miscommunication in the beginning. And because I have so many footnotes in this book, so many endnotes, if you're on an ebook, you have to be able to hit an endnote and go to the endnote and come back. So there's programming involved in that. And all of that programming got left out. And long story short, it's a $600 to $1,200 project to have someone go back in and recode that and upload it. And then we have to work out, what account it goes on and royalty splits and all that. So I am working on it, and I am hoping by the end of 2026, They Only Come Out at Night will be on Amazon in an EPUB format. Long awaited. You can be praying for that. But with From Eden to AI and Vow of the Vampire, both of them will be available on Amazon and will be available in EPUB format, because From Eden to AI is being done by Destiny Image Publishing, which is a real traditional publisher. And Vow of the Vampire is being self-published by me and is going to be released exclusively on Amazon. So, Bo Diamond, thank you so much for that question. Okay, I am going to get started. So, Katie, if there's any all cap questions or discussion starters you want to throw up on the screen, let's get going. All right. Thank you. Thank you for asking. And you know what? And I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right. If it's Ms. Machine, Ms. Machine. Sorry, guys. I'm not real clever on the uptake with some of these screen names. But I saw the note that you put in before the show started as well about no longer having mall world dreams. And I want to tell you guys about that too. So what kind of dreams am I having lately? I think they're pretty dull and normal. I think I'm going through a pretty good season right now. I'm not having nightmares at this point. I haven't had like an actual sleep paralysis attack in quite some time. I think what tends to happen is I wake up and I don't really, as I get older, I don't remember as much. And a lot of times it's not until the next night when I lay down and I close my eyes for the first time that some like memories will pop back into my head. Now, I can tell you like yesterday, I don't remember exactly what I dreamed, but I remember some of it. I just know that some of it was disturbing. I know that there were people in the dreams that I recognized. I had one dream in particular. I love our neighbors. Our neighbors are just so fantastic. He's a Christian naturopathic doctor, and he and his wife are just they're just wonderful neighbors. And I had a dream that he came over and told me he was moving away, and I remember just have this dread like filled me. But I haven't had any dreams lately that I think are prophetic or demonic. I think right now I'm going through a season where my dreams are just my brain defragging. I do tend to take on way more things than I should, which causes unnecessary stress. I'm spinning all these plates, and half the plates don't even need to be spinning. And so I think that my dreams right now are reflecting that. But I do want to address the mall world question. So during the first 2 live streams that we did several months ago now, Mall World 1 and Mall World 2, I kind of laid out this Jungian psychology idea that the nightmares that we have in our youth, that as we get older and we work those things out or we outgrow them, instead, sometimes the dreams can just cease, like we just don't have them anymore at all. But then there's other times where we will continue to have the dream. It's the same theme, but we handle the dream differently, and we can cope with the dream differently, and we have more resilience, and we have more courage. And so then we're able to observe, I must have worked that out, because like, let's do the classic locker dream that you have, you know, when you're a kid, that I'm going to get to high school and I'm not going to get my locker open. And you have these horrible dreams where you're trying and trying and trying, and people are laughing at you, and the bell is ringing, and the halls are now empty, and you still can't get your locker open. And then you get it open and it's empty, or you can't remember what books you need, or, you know, on and on. I think we've all had that one. And I know I used to have that dream a lot. And as I got older, I continued to have the high school hallway dream. But as I got older, I was able to just zip, zip, zip and get into that locker, and people would be around the locker. Vicki, you come to class? And I would have friends, and I'd be cool. And so I think it was my brain's way of saying, okay, either you worked that stuff out, or this is no longer something you need to worry about, because it's long in the past. And so I started incrementally having different mall world dreams. And what ended up happening is, about a week ago, recently, I had some incremental mall world dreams where the people didn't disappear and things like that. So a week ago, I had this dream, and I was in the mall of Mall World, and I was with 2 friends, and we were walking around, and everything was perfect, and everything was great, and we were having fun, and it was brightly lit. The stores were all open. There were crowds of people. All of a sudden, that part in the dream, it shifted, and the lights went out, and people started to scatter like roaches. And I was on an escalator, and I saw my 2 friends like running out of frame, and one of them went completely out of frame, and then the other one I could still see. And I said, "Hey!" I screamed, and it stopped him in his tracks. And I said, "You look at me right now." And he turned around, and he was kind of like still trying to get away. And I just got aggressive, and I was like, "You will not leave me. You will not go. You will not take one more step." And I was screaming these demands at him. And so he kind of hung his head and sheepishly came back to the escalator. And what was sort of funny, I don't know if this is just pop culture's way of, like, you know, saying who it really was. Instead of it being my friend, it was now Alan Tudyk from like the voice actor, but he plays Harry, the alien on Resident Alien. It was Alan Tudyk. And I'm like, oh, I go, figures. And then all of a sudden he morphed, and he didn't look like the alien from the series Resident Alien, and he didn't look like a gray. It looked like he had this super cheap, dark gray, like ill-fitting silicone, like alien Halloween costume on, but dressed like an alien gray. And then I said something like, "Oh, I see what you are." And bam, I woke up. So I was still in the mall. They still were attempting to abandon me, but I got aggressive, and it, in a comical, non-threatening sort of way, it was sort of revealed like this wasn't your friend. This was some poser. So I thought that was very interesting. So I am going to keep my my eyes peeled to see if I have any more mall world dreams, if they continue to revert back to the way that they used to be, or if I continue to kind of beat the system. We'll see. I apologize for the train. I have a train that runs right outside my window, which I love listening to, but it's always kind of a pain when I'm live. So anyway, sort of a rather long-winded answer, but thank you for asking. And Katie, I am ready when you are for the next question. All right, Bo Diamond again. If it is appropriate for this discussion time, can you give simple examples how to break from spirit spouse and other ungodly ties? Yeah, I can. So I'll give you a very, very simple answer. Now, a lot of people assume if you have this type of experience, clearly you must have had some sort of thing happen to you in childhood. And I got to be careful with YouTube. I don't know what I can and can't say, and I don't know all the little code words. So people assume that there must have been something of the sexual nature occurring, correct? This is not necessarily true. It does not have to be that at all. It can be trauma of any kind, but typically these types of entities attach to children at a very young age, typically between 3 and 5 years old, and it can be trauma of any kind. It can be neglect. It can be feelings of rejection or abandonment. It can be feeling like you're the one sibling in the family that isn't loved as much. It can be something with the home. It can be a tornado or a fire where you lose all of your belongings. It can be the loss of a parent or a grandparent. It can be medical things, constantly in the hospital, or an accident, a severe car accident, or really all childhood trauma is, in the clinical sense, in like if you're talking about it like neurologically, is whenever a child experiences something for the first time that they do not have the resilience or the coping mechanism to handle on their own. So there's fear involved, and especially if they're alone in it, right? There actually is something going on in the brain. There's an actual this isn't even a Christian term, guys. This is an actual psychological term. The place of peace and tranquility in our brain, where there's an absence of fear and anxiety, it's called Joy Island. Isn't that crazy? And what happens neurologically when we're a child and something happens to us that's beyond our ability to cope, a neural pathway is burned away from Joy Island, and it forms a bridge, and it creates its own little island over here to safely rest on, because Joy Island is no longer safe. Now, what happens in a normal, functioning, happy family is, as soon as that child cries, if mom comes and instantly picks them up and comforts them, that neural pathway will burn its way back onto Joy Island. Now, what happens is if a child is constantly burning a bridge over to another island and no one comes to rescue them, there is a part of their brain that is permanently exiled on this island, stranded on this island. I will try to remember to put it in the liner notes. My friend Nate Oyloe does a wonderful presentation on Joy Island, and I think there's 6 or 7 common islands that people build bridges to, and it's like anger, bitterness, but there's some sinful pattern things kind of too, and talks about how when we don't have the skill set or the guardianship that is constantly bringing us out of those feelings of fear, that those bridges disappear and we can't get back to Joy Island. So that's a super long explanation, but you have to understand that people that have had lifelong incubus, nightmare, succubus types of assaults, it is 9 times out of 10 going back to some sort of childhood trauma where we neurologically burned a pathway off of Joy Island and we need to get back on. And through Jesus Christ, through the Bible, through healing from trauma, through neurogenesis, we are able to renew the mind, and we are able to build those bridges back to Joy Island. And so long-winded way of getting to the actual answer to the question, Bo. But I just want everyone to understand that some sort of massively severe thing doesn't have to start this situation. It doesn't always have to be an SRA or a ritual situation or some sort of horrible abuse. It can just simply be neglect or fear of some kind that was never assuaged. So with that said, a lot of people go the deliverance route. And by what I mean by that is they're looking to have this demon cast out of them. And I've seen some success with that, but I actually think it's a lot easier than that. And where I'm seeing a lot of success, and I did do a whole video on this. If you go to the video section of my YouTube channel, there's a little 35 minute video called Banter by the Bookshelves, because I'm sitting here in front of my bookshelves, and I go through this process pretty specifically, point by point. But I call it the 4 R's. It goes all the way back to childhood when you had that moment of trauma. And no matter what initially opened the door, what the tragedy was, what the trauma was, the dysfunction, whether it was a guardian or an adult in your life that initially opened that door, what initially opened the door can be closed through prayer and these deliverance prayers. But the reason the door remains open and why these things, even after we become Christians and we call in the name of Jesus and it takes us out of our sleep paralysis, but it keeps coming back and back and back. Why do these things have permission to keep coming back after we've come to know Jesus Christ? Like, shouldn't that be conquered? The reason is because even if the initial door is closed, if there is a lie that we came into agreement with in childhood, that lie becomes a permission slip. It becomes the anchor that allows these entities to continue keeping a stronghold in our heart and in our mind and to keep coming back. And so when you think in terms of the devil being a thief and a liar, you think in penal terms, a thief is someone who's guilty of breaking and entering. And this is what Satan does. He comes to us when we're young, we're in a vulnerable position, we're scared, we are innocent, we're pure, we're naive, we don't have a lot of life experience, we don't have an in-depth doctrine, about what's going on theologically and between God and Satan, right? The cosmic war. And so what happens is we're in a moment of fear or isolation or rejection, and the enemy breaks into our heart, or he breaks into our mind, and he enters in a lie. And it's usually something about our identity, and it's usually has something to do with rejection. So it's usually something like, you're a loser, no one's ever going to love you, you're unlovable, you're a freak, you're fat, you're ugly, no one loves you, something usually very basic. Now, by the time you get into your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond, you might not even remember that first lie. And so to the long-winded answer to your question, Bo, is you can sit online and read deliverance prayers for hours and hours and all the prayers about the Freemasons and your family and the witchcraft. And you can do all of that. Part of me thinks that the demon world actually likes that. I think that they're kind of entertained by it because it's a lot of attention for them. And it's a lot of spotlight on them and how much power they have. And I think they kind of revel in that. And it's not to say that we don't want to close doors on our ancestors. That's biblical. It's in Leviticus. We're instructed to pray against our sins and the sins of our fathers. And I do see doors closing through that. But to get the permission slip officially revoked, the 4 R's is you pray and you ask God to reveal that lie. And I like to use the example from 2 Kings where Elisha sprinkled something on the water and the axe head floated to the surface. And so we ask God to reveal the lie. Let that age-old, decade-long buried lie raise to the surface of my conscious brain. Allow me to remember that lie. And then what we do is we rebuke the lie in Jesus' name. That is a lie. I no longer come into agreement with it. That is not true. I am not a loser. I am not fat. I am not ugly. I am not unlovable, whatever that is. And then you repent of it. Jesus, I am sorry that when I had a choice to believe who the enemy said I was and who you said I was, that I believed the enemy, that I put more faith in him than you. Please forgive me. Thank you that you know that I'm just dust. Thank you that you have mercy on me. You know I was a child. You know I was deceived. But please forgive me. And then the fourth and final R is replace that lie. And that might be a process, because those of us that have been sort of consciously and subconsciously meditating and ruminating on those sort of lies our whole life, even if on the surface we know it's not really true, but we're double-minded, because deep down we do still have these self-loathing issues or these rejection issues. They're identity issues. They come down to identity issues. And we have to come into agreement with who Jesus says we are. And so that means rebuking the lies, but replacing them with everything that Scripture says about who we really are. We were bought with a price. We were knit together in our mother's womb. He was there with us in the secret place. He has plans for us, plans to prosper us, not to harm us. He is our friends. We're the apple of his eye. He's singing over us. He's going to prepare a place for us, etc., etc. We have to meditate on those scriptures that tell us who we are. We are a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people of his own possession. And these lies that the enemy have put into our head, I have found on my 40-minute Zoom calls, these freedom encounters that we do, I have found more freedom in 40 minutes with people who retrieve that lie and renounce it. It's been absolutely amazing to be on the sidelines and see Jesus bring healing into people's life. So I would say be less distracted with all the demon foo-foo and work on your heart. Let Jesus heal your heart, because once Jesus is in there, and you know who he is, you know how he feels about you, and you know who you are, and you heal from that trauma, whether it's a spirit spouse or a demon or a principality, or it came through a ritual, no matter what it is, it loses its ground because you have broken that contract. I'm no longer in agreement. Jesus has disavowed me of this covenant, and I'm seeing more freedom in that. So pretty long answer, guys. Hope that was helpful. All right, Katie, I'm ready. I will try not to be so long-winded, guys. During sleep paralysis, you say you cannot see anything. It's just a screenshot. So no, okay, so Colleen, thanks. Yes, so some people do see things, Colleen. Some people see full-on manifestations and apparitions and demons and red glowing eyes and alien grays at the end of their bed and old hags and gargoyles on their chest. And so it's not that they aren't seeing the entities. What I'm telling people is there's an intermediate phase, because all of us who have had sleep paralysis a million times, there's that struggle where you're in it and you're fighting to speak. And then there's that moment where it breaks loose and bang, and then you know you're awake. So that struggle period where all you can do is kind of move your eyes and see what's kind of around you. What I'm saying is, until you are fully awake, the background that you're seeing is a screen memory of your, it's a reproduction or an overlay of the room that you're in. Because for most people, and I'm not saying 100% of the time, 100% of the people have to have this experience. There's always outliers. But what I'm saying is, for most of us, there's some sort of a glitch in the room. If you're looking and you're not in so much of a heightened fight or flight that you're actually able to observe, there's going to be something weird. The door is going to be on the wrong wall of your room. Your bedspread's a different color. There's a cat on the bed and you don't have a cat. There's a bookshelf or a piece of furniture you don't really own. And sometimes it's really subtle. One time I remember there was a picture on the wall that wasn't really in my room. And so it is that backdrop that is a screen memory. And I think that a lot of people are reticent. They argue with me on this. And I think that the more people play around with AI and ChatGPT and they start using Grok and things to like create images, the more people are going to understand the absolute similarities between UFO and sleep paralysis screen memories and AI art generation. Because if any of you have played around with the AI art generation, you'll tell it something and there's certain things it doesn't know how to do. Like I've noticed it doesn't know how to do numbers very well, which is maybe why it can't do fingers well either. I remember one time I was trying to get it to do a picture of a tea party, and I wanted 4 plates and I wanted 1 plate in front of every chair. And everything that I asked for was right in the picture, except that there was 5 plates on the table. So I said, don't change anything, just take away 1 of the plates. So then the next picture I got, it only had 3 plates. And I went back and forth between 3 plates and 5 plates, 3 plates and 5 plates. It could not do 4 plates. There was this little glitch it couldn't do. And I don't know, some of you guys, if I turn it off right away because it drives me nuts, but there's a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot of, but there are YouTube creators now where the entire YouTube video is AI video. And some of them are actually hilarious if you watch them. I was watching one once and it was on the history of like the scullery maids back in was that the Edwardian period? I don't think it was Victorian. I want to say it was the Edwardian, but anyway, so it was all these like AI images of all these scullery maids in the hot kitchens and like kneading the bread dough and stuff. But there was all of these glitches, and the comment section wasn't even commenting on the content or the information. It was commenting on, it almost became like a Where's Waldo of how many of like these hilarious AI glitches can you find in the video. And one of them was like, it was all these like people, like these scullery maids in the kitchen, like kneading bread in front of the ovens. And they had like iWatches, like Apple Watches on and stuff like that. It was so funny. But anyway, yeah. So, but Colleen, to answer the rest of your question, people do see things. They're just not wide awake in their bedroom quite yet. What they are seeing and hearing is still in an altered state of consciousness. It's in a hypnopompic or a hypnagogic window of just falling asleep or just coming out of sleep. And there are auditory hallucinations as well. There's fancy names for all this. There's fancy names for auditory hallucinations. And there's a fancy name. Some people smell things. They smell like rotting flesh or rat or feces, or like people will sometimes have a smell will wake them up. But there's sounds too. The most common is like the typical horror movie haunted house tropes. People will hear creaking floorboards. They will hear footsteps. Knocking on the door or the window is very common. The vibrations that people hear is a little bit different. That loud whooshing or wind or helicopter blade sound you might hear in your ear as you're coming in and out of sleep paralysis. I would always get it right before. It would be like a, and it's very disorienting. It's very similar to when you're going down with anesthesia. That actually isn't just a horror movie sound effect. That is actually the sound of your, fill in the blank, guys, whatever is most comfortable for you. Your spirit, your soul, as you are about to have an out-of-body experience, and you are separating from your physical body into the astral. It's a high frequency. The astral has to do with frequencies and vibrations, and that sound you're hearing in your ear is actually the sound of that separation. And I think that's why so many people intuitively, even if they don't know it, when they hear that sound, they become instantly terrified, because there is just a knowing and a sense that something is happening here, that I'm not in control. And that is also the point where a lot of people go lucid. And by lucid, I mean they become aware. I'm in the dream state. I got to get out of here. All right. Next question, Katie. Do you think that Adam and Eve required sleep before their fall? That is a great question. You would think I would have thought of something like that before. I don't know. Part of me wants to guess no. Okay. This is the caveat, though. Now, I realize that when God created the world in 6 days and on the seventh day he rested, I realize that that kind of rest means a resting from labor. It doesn't mean he took a nap, right? But there was a need even before the fall for relaxation time. It wasn't work the whole time. But sleep, I don't know. Is there something, and Katie, maybe you can help me. I know it says that when we, in eternity, it says things like we no longer will need the sun and we'll no longer need. Is there anything specifically there that says that when we're in our resurrection bodies, will we need sleep or not? That's a great question. I can't say that I know. I could only give a guess. But on the fourth day, the sun, the moon, and the stars were created to mark the days and seasons. So I assume that would mean that the sun would go down every night. So did they just stay up all night in the dark, or was that an indication? Because I know that even when we sleep, it's like it's like a daily reminder of the Sabbath, where we're awake and then we sleep and then we wake up. Because I do think that there are theological implications in our sleep. They're like mini deaths, when we wake up. That's a great question. I was, when you first asked, I was going to say my guess would be that they didn't, but now I'm thinking that maybe my guess would be that they maybe did. I'm interested in the chat in the comments. Let me know what you think. That's a great question. All right, Katie. Where do you interview sleep paralysis victims? I am one of them. So primarily what I did before my book came out is I came on a lot of podcasts and I asked for people to contact me. And so a lot of that was through email and Skype, remember that? I don't think Skype's around anymore. What I do now is I initially get a lot of emails. A lot of people will reach out and just tell me their stories. So a lot of it is emails. But for the people that are still trying to work through it, like I need help, I'm done, I've had it, I'm sick and tired of this, I need help, I want someone to pray with me. What we have is we have a Calendly site set up, and it's very, very temporarily offline right now because we're booked through the end of April. And by the grace of God, I now have a team. I am part of a team, and I have collected all of their availability, and I just need to get the new availability put up on the calendar. But there's some little caveats because I'm going to be gone the first 2 weeks in May and things like that. So I'm hoping that in May it will be back up. So Katie, you can put the link up on the screen. I think we have a banner for it. It's calendly.com/Vicki Joy 2001. And like I said, it's offline now, but if you go back in May, you'll be able to sign up for a time slot. So the good news is, even though it's offline, right now, I'm able to do by myself, like, with a person, we're able to do 6 meetings a week. And when the new calendar goes up, it's doubling to 12 meetings a week. So we're doubling the amount of times. I won't necessarily be on every call. I will be on like a third or a fourth of them. I will still be doing those calls every week, but check back in May. And in the meantime, anyone who wants to email me back and forth. I'm usually about 2 weeks behind, but I always get back to people via email. And you can email me at vjaauthor@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, vickijoyanderson.com. And if you go to the contact page, all of this information on all the different places that you can contact me is there. So please come back in May and sign up for a slot. We would love to talk with you and pray with you. In the meantime, please email me. Oh, gosh. All right. The scariest dream I ever had. I think I told this story in its totality the first time I was on the Confessionals. So I will try to not give the long-winded version. Or you know what I can do? You know what I'll do? If you want to know the scariest one I ever had, you can go to the very first time I was on the Confessionals. I tell the whole story about the empty thrones up in the astral realm and the orb that came and plowed into me. That actually happened 3 days after a 4-hour prayer phone call with a woman who was praying over the incubus spirit that had been over me my whole life. And I was able to break free of it for the first time. And 3 days later, it came back in the dream realm to try to, I think, trick me into revowing. And praise God, the Holy Spirit was there. That whole story is in the Confessionals episode. I'm going to make a little note to put that in the liners. I'll put it in the liner notes so you don't have to dig for it. And I'm going to put that Nate talk in there too. There's some things I want to add this time to the liner notes. So I'll tell you one that I have never told online. And this dream I had very, very shortly after my mom died. So I was in deep grief, and I was in this like almost identity crisis. Like, who am I without my mom? And like, she was my best friend, and I was living away from family. And so I was kind of isolated. And so I was already kind of and what's interesting about this dream is this is what made me figure out for the first time that a lot of my dreams that I've been having my whole life were astral. I didn't know. I just thought I was having nightmares, but this one was so obvious that I couldn't deny it anymore. So what happened was I was in a very, very old, Gilded Age kind of mansion. It was very dark. And I will tell you that I prayed and searched for this house online for years. I had this dream in 2013. And so I think a good 10, 11, 12 years. And I did find the house. It is a Vanderbilt mansion. And it's called The Breakers. And I think it's in Rhode Island. And I can't remember his name. It's not it's not Gloria Vanderbilt. I think it was her grandfather. He had a name that started with a C. It was like Claiborne or something sort of exotic. Somebody can put it in the chat if they know. But anyway, it took me over a decade to find it. And in the dream, it looked a little different because it was pitch dark in the dream. And it was from ages ago. So instead of electricity and stuff, it was literally like sconces on the wall and things. But it was The Breakers. So anyway, I'm on the top floor. Cornelius, oh, thank you. Yes, you are correct. You are correct, sir. So I was on the third floor, and there's kind of like this balcony where you can like look over this grand entrance into the foyer. And so I was in a very old-fashioned bedroom with a big, huge wooden headboard. And there was a woman who had just given birth to a baby boy, a baby son. And in the dream, one of my old coworkers was the father of this child. And so he comes out of the room and it's like, mom and baby are fine. They're fine. Thank you so much. And they're hugging me. And I don't really know what's going on. But he goes back into the room and shuts the door. And then the grandfather of this baby boy comes out, and he's an old man. He's in a suit, like an old fashioned kind of like suit. And he kind of looks like the old man, like the Sandman guy in the Metallica Sandman video, like just this creepy old man. But he's like thanking me. And so we're walking down the hall past the bedroom. So we're going to be going downstairs. So we're walking all the way down the hall. I can tell you what it smelled like. There was a carpet runner on the floor. The wainscoting, I think they call it, with like this elaborate wood like that went up, and the sconces on the wall. And I figured out that this old man was the grandfather, and apparently this was going to be some sort of a breech pregnancy, and the woman and the baby were both going to die. And I guess I had some sort of prophetic dream, and I had told the family, and because they knew about it in advance, it saved the family. So the guy is flattering me, and he's like, oh, you have a gift, and it's like, oh, chosen one, all this nonsense, right? And this is how I know I was lucid. I had full access to my brain, my mind, my personality, my inner monologue. You know how we all have this inner monologue? Mine's very cynical and sarcastic. And so as he's flattering me, I'm going like, whatever, and like, whatever. And so we get to the end of the hall, and we turn the hall, and we're rounding the corner, and there's a little ways to go to this grand staircase. And he's like, he says in very like old English, some say such giftings come. Oh, some say such giftings are born of childhood trauma. And I remember in my mind that's the point I went lucid. I'm like, that's weird. People don't talk like that. That's really weird. People don't talk like that. And so I said, childhood trauma. I go, what are you talking about? I don't have any trauma. And he said, your birth defects, all your surgeries. And I said, who cares? I go, it's all in the past. That was 30 years ago. It's all done. I overcame. God worked all things together for good. And I'm quoting all these scriptures, like basically saying like Jesus has healed me and all things work together for good. And those things made me strong. And I'm not hearing any footsteps behind me. So I turn around, and the guy looks exactly the same. He's still in the suit. He looks exactly the same, but his countenance has changed. His eyes have murder in his eyes. He is furious. And he comes at me like this with his hand, and he, comes quickly at me and just locks onto my neck and lifts me up about a foot off the air and takes me to the staircase, and I'm dangling over the stairs, and he's choking me. And another reason why I knew this was something other than just a dream is just like in real life, this has never happened to me before. My entire life flashed before my eyes in this dream. Like it was so crazy. And I remember thinking in the dream, this is how I die? Like this is what? But at this point I cannot breathe. And I mean, I feel like I'm dying. I 100% thought it was real. And I start to think I've got to say Jesus. And before I even said anything, he grabbed even tighter and he hissed at me, don't you dare say that name. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And my feet are like tippy-toeing, kind of trying to reach the step. And I close my eyes like, Jesus, just help me. I close my eyes. And then when I opened my eyes, his face had morphed, and he had the face of my newly dead mother. And my mom was laughing at me, like evilly, like laughing at me. And so it was like my own mother was killing me. And so I just closed my eyes, like, I don't even care if I die at this point. It was so traumatizing. And at that point, he slipped. For a split second, he dropped me. And I said, gee, that's all I got out before he choked me again, but it was enough. And I woke up. And that's when I started realizing that was not just a bad dream. That was so real. And I didn't wake up with like a handprint on me or anything dramatic. I know that happens for some people, but that was the very beginning. That was 2013. That's when I decided enough is enough. I am sick of this. This has been happening my whole life. I'm getting to the bottom of this. I'm figuring this out. And that's when I started researching in 2013, but I was a few months into it, and the Lord told me, not now. You are not going to be studying this stuff while you're grieving the loss of your mother. And so I did put it on hold for several years. And I think I didn't get back to it until 2018, 2019, something like that. So anyway, that was probably one of the two scariest I've ever had. Scariest was in the Confessionals episode, and I will put that in the liner notes for everybody. All right, Katie. Have you ever heard of a burning head, almost like your head is going to explode during a sleep paralysis episode when trying to move or break free? Okay, break free from it. A burning head. I don't think I don't think I have. I know that's going to be a short answer, but you know what's really interesting, and this is why I'm glad people tell me things. A lot of times someone will say, have you ever heard of this? And occasionally I will be like, I have never heard of that. And it intrigues me. So I'll go and I'll research it. And I will tell you within a week, someone will contact me and say, have you ever heard of this? And it's what I just researched. So I haven't heard of it, but thank you for letting me know, because my guess is that that's going to lead to my being able to help more people after I look it up. All right. So Katie, I'm going to keep going. We're just at about an hour here, guys, and I really do want to get to everyone's questions. And I'm so happy people are asking questions. My biggest fear when I did this is like, what if nobody has any questions? So this is super fun. And so, but I also don't want to keep people on here for 2 hours in the middle of the day either. So let's keep going, Katie, and let's go at least an hour and a half, and then let's kind of like take everybody's pulse and see if they want to keep going. All right. Are all sexual dreams from demonic influence, or is it normal? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So there's just normal dreams, especially, you know, during puberty, and there's the wet dreams. And if you're delving into this stuff, there's people, if you're obsessed with sex during your waking hours, you know, it's probably going to bleed through into the night. It could be influenced by like a movie you watched right before you went to bed. So it's like right there on the tip of your brain. So the way that you know that it is something beyond is it's something that's going on continuously on a regular basis, and it pretty much started in childhood. Maybe it started a little later in life, in puberty or whatever, but there's a torment to it. There's a knowledge that this isn't just a human being. And even people that dream where they disguise themselves as a familiar spirit, so it looks like an ex-boyfriend or a boyfriend or a spouse, or there's something about it where people just know this is off. There's a torment to it. It will typically also follow you into it. It's an attachment. And so it will very drastically affect your waking hours. So your relationships, your sexual relationships, your marriages will be very affected. If you have a spirit spouse attached to you, they are viciously jealous creatures. They share with no one. And so the three categories that I see the most, and I'm trying to remember in my mind if there's ever been an exception to this, like someone in a wonderful, super happy, wonderful marriage calls me and says, I have a spirit spouse. And like I said, there's always outliers, but the three things that I hear the most are I have people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who call me and they're devastated because they have never had a successful relationship. They've never been asked out. They've never been on a date. They've never gotten married. The second category is someone has gotten married, but they're in a cycle of serial marriages and divorces. And a lot of the marriages are very narcissistic and abusive. And the third category is I am happily married. I do love my spouse. My spouse does love me. We're faithful to one another, but sex is almost non-existent in the relationship. So these are some of the ways that these demons attach and sabotage the sexual activity in the waking world. So hope that helps. All right, Katie, what is next? Hey, Vicki, how are you doing? You're an amazing sister. Love you here from Canada, Ontario. Hey, thank you, Little Black Bear. We have many friends in Canada. In fact, we're going to see some of them at Hear the Watchman conference in August, Springfield, Missouri, if anybody wants to come. So welcome, Canada. Thank you for listening. Okay, what about incubus type encounters being interpreted as animus integrating instead of purely spiritual attack? Yeah, so my wheelhouse is pretty much just studying dream attacks and sleep paralysis. And so I know that there are medical explanations, physiological explanations, Jungian psychology explanations, and there's other religious contexts and culture explanations. And so I certainly don't think that every single incubus attack is a demonic attack. Like one example I can give you is in ritual abuse. It can be done and through remote viewing, witchcraft kind of things. Human beings, in other words, human beings can inflict this upon other human beings. It can be astral. It can be purely astral as well. So it does not always have to, an incubus attack does not always have to be a demonic attack per se. Now, an incubus in and of itself is a demon of that sort. And so, but by way of just a sexual attack in general, if that's happening in an altered state of consciousness or in the astral or in a dream, it does not exclusively have to be a demonic attack. No. Did Adam and Eve ever have glorified bodies? So, I mean, I know before the fall, something was there because they weren't meant to die originally. So something in that original body was corrupted when they ate of that fruit, whatever that means. Now, were their glorified bodies the same as our glorified bodies? That I don't know, because they weren't really in the final kingdom at that point either, or I'm trying to think of the right word to say, because there's so many different doctrines now with, Genesis 1 versus Genesis 2 and gap theories, and what was the Garden of Eden, and was it on Mount Zion, and was he a part of the divine council? And so depending on where you're falling, I guess I tend to think that God in his sovereignty had this whole entire plan laid out from the beginning, or a better way to say it is he's outside of time. So he saw the whole deal at once. Right. And so there's a sense where Adam and Eve alone in a garden wasn't perfection yet, because they hadn't had Jesus Christ in all of his character qualities yet revealed. I mean, there's aspects of the nature of who God is, and there's aspects of who Jesus is that would always remain hidden and untapped if there had been no fall. And so in a way, even though the fall is destructive, it has given us the opportunity to see every single attribute of God and Jesus. Whereas if there had never been a fall and we had been in this innocent state where we didn't understand evil, then Jesus never would have given 100% of himself to us, because there would have been whole aspects of him that would never have come into play. So is this glorified body that makes us able to stand in the presence of Jesus Christ without being incinerated, was it the same body as Adam and Eve had? What question I would have to have answered there is, when they walked in the garden with God, were they walking with God the Father, or were they walking with the pre-incarnate Jesus? Because if they weren't walking with the pre-incarnate Jesus, then Jesus never would have been revealed to us at all had they not fallen. And so is the glorified body something that is the culmination of all redemptive history, or is it a returning back to a garden? So I don't know. I don't know for sure. It's a really good question. And the reason I love questions like that is because even if we don't fully come to an answer, it causes us to question some of these other theories and theologies that we've come to grips with. So let's say the gap theory is true. How would that affect the answer to this question? Let's say the gap theory isn't true. And let's say, all of these things, there's so many things coming into play now with the garden. And ever since Gary Wayne and Heiser and these other guys have come out, our minds have been blown with Genesis 1:1 isn't just Sunday school Genesis 1:1 anymore. Now all of a sudden there's people out there talking about the gap theory, and they're talking about a 6-day creation where there was men and women on earth, and then Adam and Eve were up in Mount Zion, or they were on the Divine Council, or the serpent seed. People are talking about that. And sometimes when we ask these other questions, it forces us to flesh out some of these other doctrines. And because if they're not cohesive, then some of the other things maybe have to be refleshed out. So I don't know. I'm curious what other people have to say in the live chat and in the comments. What is my next book topic? Okay, so it's always risky saying this, because then a year goes by and it's not what you say, and then people are like, well, I was really looking forward to that idea. So I do have some ideas. I'm actually like 40,000 words into a novel. I'm not really into fiction, but I'm kind of, when I wrote From Eden to AI, I sort of came up with like a fiction version of it. My heart's not really in it, but I figure once you've written 40,000 words to something, you kind of want to finish it. But I think where I'm leaning, and I think it would be a good follow-up to From Eden to AI, is a few years ago at a Michael Lake conference, and you can hear this conference online. I'm going to write this down too for the liner notes. I also presented a little bit of it in an episode. I think it was a 2-part episode of Prometheus Lens with Justin Brown. But I was talking about the hive mind, but it was also tied into how God designed our brains, and how the modern Western mind and the ancient Semitic mind work differently, and it's step logic versus block logic. And then I go on to explain how for the last 200 years in the United States, our whole education system and the way that they are teaching us to learn is actually contrary to the way God designed our brains to work. And then I tie all this into how it's moving towards transhumanism and the new dark age that A. Lovecraft talks about in the opening paragraph of Call of Cthulhu. And so I have been wanting to write that book for a couple years now. So that's been on the back burner. And I think when I'm ready to start writing again, that might be where I start. Okay, why are some dreams lucid and some are not? Great questions. Are the lucid ones an indication of astral realm visitation? Not necessarily. So there is so much misinformation and scare quotes around lucid dreaming. So the New Age has sort of hijacked that phrase, lucid dreaming, because they use that for purposes that would not be biblical or pleasing to Jesus, right? They're using it to astral project. They're using it to leave their first estate. They're using it to interact with fallen angels. It's a form of divination. And then they're using it for the acquiring of giftings, arcane knowledge, activities in the astral world that are not above board, etc. So their utilization of lucidity is contrary to scripture, but the actual act of becoming lucid at night is purely physiological. And every time I try to explain this, there's always someone that wants to hear me saying something new age or unbiblical. And so I'm going to just try to articulate it as best I can. And I'm going to just rely upon your grace to understand that if something's not biblical, I am not in agreement with it. All right. What lucidity means is the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex of your brain is turned on. So the part of your brain that is responsible for all of your higher learning, it's doing all the cognitive work. It's the control center of the brain. It's the one chugging at 5,000 RPMs all day long and thinking and stressing out and juggling and prioritizing and organizing. And it's dealing with what's the consequences of this action? And it's thinking 3 steps ahead. And it's your emotional center. It's churning out and organizing all of your emotions. And so when we go to bed at night, when we wake up and we say, I feel well rested, what really slept at night, what really got rested, and the reason why we feel good in the morning if we've gotten good night's sleep is because during the REM phase of sleep, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex switches off. It gets to take a nap. The computer gets put into sleep mode for the night. And so rather than that part of our brain going 24/7, it gets a rest. So the way God designed the brain is that when we are in REM sleep, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex shuts off. And that's why our dreams are often piecemeal and nonsensical and flashes, and we don't remember it, and there's not a lot of logic to it, and it's because it's just defragging, right? So when we go lucid, what that means is there's some point in your REM cycle when that dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is supposed to be shut down where it flips on. Now, it can flip on in two different ways. It can maybe flip on in more than two ways, but here's the two main ways. You can learn through unbiblical New Age practices how to trip your system and flip it on at night so that you can use it. Or it's going to happen naturally. And when does it happen naturally? I think it happens naturally in two ways. You can be lucid when you're no longer in the REM state. So you think it's a dream, but the indication that it's not a dream is that all of a sudden you're lucid, which can indicate this is not an REM cycle. This is not a dream. This is something else. If it flips on in your REM cycle, which it can, to me, that's a fight or flight indication. I think that that's an escape valve that God built into our brains so that when we get attacked in our sleep, when we're in warfare, when we're the most vulnerable, we're asleep, that if an enemy comes into our vicinity, that flips on so we can protect ourselves. Namely, I'm going to call on the name of Jesus. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to try to scream. Or I'm going to control this dream in such a way that I can get away from this situation. So where lucid dreaming becomes unbiblical and dangerous, and where it becomes New Age and where it becomes divination, is when you stay in that lucidity to interact with or go deeper and deeper into the dream experience or the astral realm. And so, but it is possible to go lucid. In fact, mothers, I think, have an amazing superpower that no matter what phase of sleep you're in, you can be in deep sleep, you can be in REM sleep, and all of a sudden, you know something's wrong with your kids. You know they haven't gotten home. You know that they've been calling on the phone and you've been missing their messages. I couldn't believe how many times when I was a little child, I would wake up with sleep paralysis in my bedroom and I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I was so scared. I would just sit there with my covers over my head. And I would say, Jesus, please send my mommy in here. Jesus, please send my mommy in here. And like my mom, like she was always there. I'm like, how do they know? And so I do think that we can go lucid when we're in trouble. We can go lucid when the Lord wants to wake us up, like get up right now. There's someone in the house. There's something wrong with the kids. There's something wrong. I have gone lucid in dreams before where I have been instructed, like, pray for this person right now. And in this dream, I'm praying and I have full access to my brain. I know this person's name. I know my relationship with them. I know what they need prayer for. So I don't think that every single time you're lucid, you're necessarily in the astral realm, nor do I think that every single person that's lucid when they dream is using it to do unbiblical things. Sometimes it is there for our protection. We use it not to get deeper into the dream or deeper into the astral. We use it to get out of the situation and to wake up. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that no one can pull anything unbiblical or New Age out of that. I tried to make that as neurological as possible. All right, Katie, I don't know if we've got anything more. We are at about an hour and 15 minutes here. So if there isn't anything more, I think that I might call it a day. However, I do also know that sometimes Katie has to leave and can only be here about an hour and 15 minutes. So it could be too that she left. So let me just see. I think I don't really know where she left off. I'm just kind of looking where I'm at on the screen. Do you have any knowledge of being given court orders to eat dinner with someone in it? Yes. I refused the court orders and kicked my daughter and her boyfriend out of my house in the dream. Yeah. So now the court orders that's really, really specific. They're really giving it away there because a lot of this stuff is contractual, but you bring up a really good point. And again, we have to use our discretion. There has to be a lot of things at play. Like when you're pulled out of your body into the astral, there's a bunch of things going on. So I don't want people to think every time I have a dream where I'm eating food, I've contracted with a demon, or every single time I dream that I'm getting married, it means this or whatever. But if you're already prone to this sort of dream warfare, and when you know that you're in this state, that's one of the big tropes to gain your agreement. They can have you crossing a threshold, which can be going in somewhere, going over a threshold, but it can be going like through arches or through going in between two pillars, going up a river, climbing up a mountain, eating food, especially something that is like cake or bread. That's a salt covenant. Drinking wine or tea, honey is another one. I had a very specific dream once where also if things show up in threes, if there's three women or, three guys in suits, like for some reason, when they come in threes, you can kind of, be suspicious. I was in an old church of mine. It was a real church that I had went to, and I had was exiting from where there was a wedding, and the wedding cake was set up. And these three women were like, "You got to try this cake." It was a wedding cake. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And I happened to be very, very gluten intolerant at that point in life. And so I must have been lucid because I said, "I can't eat that. I can't eat gluten." And they're like, "Oh, just take a bite. It's so good." I'm like, "I can't." I'm like, I'm not going to eat gluten. It's not worth it. And we bickered back and forth to the point of like, just, making me irritated. And so I'm like, fine. So I put a bite in my mouth and chewed it. And then when they weren't looking, I spit it out because I didn't want to chew the gluten. Another thing too, I do pray that, because I don't remember a lot of my dreams anymore. I will pray like, God, if I get into a situation where when I wake up in the morning, I'm not going to remember, will you either wake me up or send someone in the dream to help me or whatever. Because if you wake up, you'll typically remember the dream that you were having. So I woke up immediately and I was like, okay, God, I did spit it out, but a wedding cake, three long black-haired women, coercing me to eat wedding cake. Oh, give me a break. But yeah, sometimes it helps if you're cognizant enough in your dream to look up and to look down, because if you look down, you can see yourself on some cliche situations. You can see yourself on red carpets, which it has to do with bloodline, or you can have yourself on the white and black checkerboard floor, which is Masonic and ritual. If you look up, you can see things like sometimes there'll be no ceiling and you can see the sky. One time I looked up, I was in a church and I looked down and I was on the bloodline carpet, and it was all of us women and we were being escorted by men, and we were all elaborately dressed in like wedding attire, but wedding attire from the country of India, not America. And all the men sort of looked like ancient Persian, kind of like Middle Eastern looking. And they kept telling me in the dream, don't look down, don't look down. But it was this rickety staircase, and I was looking down because I was lucid. And in real life, I have trouble with stairs like that because of my eyesight. So I'm like, and he's like, don't worry, I got you. Quit looking down, quit looking down. So because he kept saying, don't look down, I looked up. And the rafters of this old church, dark wood, and this huge vaulted, all the rafters were showing. And I'm not Catholic, so I had to look this up. But hanging on the ceiling was a massive thurible, which is those balls of incense that get swung. And the whole thing was swinging like a pendulum and just dumping this incense out on all of us brides. And so I'm like, Jesus, get me out of here. And I woke up and I just started rebuking. And so don't freak out. If you do have a dream and you wake up and you're like, oh my goodness, that was so obviously somewhere where I wasn't supposed to be. You can pray against it. One of my favorite prayers is from Numbers chapter 30. It's not an apples to apples comparison, but in the Torah, it says that married women and virgin daughters living with their guardian, whether it's their father, brother, uncle, whatever, on the day that they make a vow to God, on the day that their spouse or father hears of it, if he chooses, he can disavow them of it. And what's great about where we're living now in modernity, post-crucifixion, is all of us, whether you're married, single, male, female, divorced, married, it doesn't matter. We all have a Father in heaven, and we all have a bridegroom, Jesus. And so when I have dreams like that, I'll say, Father, as my Father in heaven, Jesus as my heavenly bridegroom, I have two advocates before the courts of heaven. Will you please on my behalf disavow me of any vow that I made in this dream, or any oath, any promise, any agreement, any covenant, any contract. All right. Let me see here. Christopher! In reference to the AI video subject. Yeah. Check out Neural Viz for these super creative AI generated crazy interconnected videos. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm going to write this down. Neural Viz. All right. I don't know if Redwood Bugaloo is still in the chat, but if he is, everybody say a big hi to him. I have known him for 20 years. Absolutely love him and his whole entire family. All right. Hey, Vic, glad to make it on to one of your shows. Love you so much, my sister. Humboldt says hi. Oh, 3 beans. Okay. Which one of my beans is this? I got the whole family in the house. This is exciting. I'm glad I kept going through the comments, or I would have missed all that. All right. Am I right in thinking that if there hadn't been a fall, most of us wouldn't exist? Okay. This is a great question, because traditional denominational evangelical Christianity, they would likely say Adam and Eve would have stayed in the garden, because if you're reading closely, Cain and Abel did not come until after the fall. Now, then you say, but in Genesis 1, it says, be fruitful and multiply. So maybe Adam and Eve hadn't had any children at the time of the fall, but maybe they would have if they hadn't fallen. But then again, we don't know how long they were in the garden before they did fall. Now, here is where it gets interesting. And this is where there is a lot of unknowns and a lot of division between theologians. And I have greatly respected mentors and theologians on both sides of this issue. But Gary Wayne, in his first book, Genesis 6 Conspiracy, Book 1, talks extensively about the differing creations in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. He says that they're different creations. And if they're not different creations, the one thing that we have to figure out as Christians, because we don't want to just give straw man answers, like when the world comes to us, we don't want to just give the answers to them, right? And I actually have friends who are not Christians who believe in evolution and think the Bible is ridiculous and Christians are ridiculous, because Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 are clearly different creation stories, and we're too stupid to figure it out. And if you ask a Christian about it, we just say, no, it's the same story, but this is just like the highlight reel. And it's not a good enough answer for the people that have actually anthropologically and historically researched it. Because if you go through the order of creation, you put day 1 through 7, things are being created on different days. And it does say in the beginning of chapter 2, I can't believe my Bible's not at my desk right now. It says that on the 7th day he rested, and then it makes it clear that what's happening after that 7th day is now he's doing something different. And so there's things in the text, and especially in the Hebrew, that have to be accounted for. But Gary Wayne talks about Genesis 1 as the as the day 6 man. And he talks about Genesis 2 as being Adam and Eve. And we know that Adam was, Jesus was the second Adam. Adam had a very special role. Like, he was the first, maybe not king, but he was the first maybe high priest acting on behalf of man. He had a different role. He was in this garden. And so what the point that Gary makes, and he does this linguistically using the Hebrew language, when it says, let us make man in our own image, male and female, let us create them. Now, this argument is going to get less and less profound as we go into the echelons of modernity, where he, she, it, they, and them don't mean the same things anymore. But when you say plural in the Hebrew, let us make man in our own image, male and female, let us create them. And then he told them to be fruitful and multiply. Well, we know from Genesis 2 that Adam was created, and then a whole lot of work was done with naming animals and such. And then he figured out, wait, I don't have a mate. So Adam and Eve were not made, let us make man in our own image, man and woman, and then be fruitful and multiply. Adam and Eve were created with some separation of time between them. And we don't ever see in Genesis 2 God directly saying to Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply. We don't see that. And yet then we see that when they fell, then all of a sudden they're having children. So could it be that when they fell from their lofty mountain position, that they became a part of the day 6 creation, where men and women had been down there procreating for who knows how long. And that's why then they started procreating, because they lost their high priestly role and they're now in this just day 6 glut. And that makes better sense of how Cain is afraid of going into another city and being murdered. Where are all these cities coming from? And the only explanation the church has ever given is that Adam and Eve had, a few daughters and sons, and they all started incestuously marrying one another. And then at one point, God said, enough of that. We're going to do it. There are enough people on the planet. We'll do it differently now. And so I don't know, guys. I'm really, really intrigued with Gary Wayne's argument, because I read through the 600 pages that it took for him to lay that argument. But it's not necessarily the kind of thing that you just throw on a Christian for the first time and they go, yeah, that makes sense, because it goes against all of our traditions. And usually that creates a lot of cognitive dissonance. But I think that if you go by Gary Wayne's theory, and he's certainly not the first person to come up with it, but if you go with the day 6 creation being a separate creation from the Adam and Eve Genesis 2 creation, I think that even if they hadn't fallen, we'd still be here, because we have a whole nother glut of humanity down here procreating, because they were commanded by God to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. So, and I think that was always the plan for earth, because when the flood came, Noah and the animals were told then to multiply and fill the earth again. So, very fascinating topic. Maybe we'll have to do a Taco Tuesday on that topic at some point. Okay. Let's go through a few more here. Okay. Tiny Loves Boston question. I gave 30-second voice analysis to this company. Ooh, okay. Bioacoustic Solutions. They use the musical scale for identification of the vocal sounds. Does this sound new age occultic? Thank you. Okay. So, I guess it depends on, what ultimately they're doing with it. I would have to look into it more to see like what information, like what data are they getting out of it. And, if they're not using it to thin the veil or communicate, with the demon world or whatever. The one thing though, that I would be worried about is anytime we give out any type of our DNA, whether it is a voice sample, blood, cheek culture, whatever, and we send it off to some corporation, even if we say I would like my sample back or I'd like my sample destroyed, we don't know what sort of databases that they are creating. And the thing that spooks me about a voice analysis is years ago, if you had a 10-minute voice sample of someone's voice, you could recreate them to say anything that you wanted to say. Now, it's no longer 10 minutes. I can't remember what it is now. Maybe someone in the chat can say it, but the last I heard, it was only like a handful of seconds. And so as soon as someone has a voice sample, and they have a voice sample of all of us, right? Because they can hack into our phones and our audio messages and our YouTube channels and all of that. But now you've got the potential to have our own voices weaponized against us, and not just to like, you know, corner us and accuse us of a crime or whatever, but even as things grow darker, are we even going to trust that the person who says they're on the phone, caller ID comes up, I know it's my dad. Hey, Dad. Dad's, hey, where are you? Or hey, Vic, come here. And what if it's not my dad? You know, I always got to think conspiratorial, guys. You know, I think I watched the Terminator movies at too young of an age. It took root. It's hard for me to get out of this, but we just have to be very, very careful when we're giving away genealogical information about our bloodline, our DNA, our voice, because these companies are also data mining collection companies, and God only knows what they're doing with all of these algorithms and pieces of information. All right. Us wouldn't exist. Okay. I should read some of these before I put them up, because some of this is just conversation between you guys. All right. I am sort of towards the end here. Okay. Vicki, you probably did not see my earlier comment that many years ago I was a tour guide at the Breaker. No. Oh, that's so fascinating to me. I hope you'll email me. I would love to talk to you, just because that dream had such an effect, and I've been reading up on the Breakers since. VJA author at gmail.com. I would love to talk to you. That's crazy. The way I finally found that the Breakers was the house, and I think it's behind a paywall now. There's a guy that has a YouTube channel. I think he's a realtor on the East Coast, and he goes through gilded mansions that have been either restored or they've been kept that way since the beginning. And one day he did a tour of this thing, and my blood just went cold. I mean, you wouldn't even believe it. All right, I am towards kind of the end here. I do see all caps here. I was thinking, because a lot of us were conceived from sinful unions, I thought just a different batch of people would have been born. Well, yeah, that's true. I was answering more in a general sense of would masses of humanity be here? But yeah, I mean, and even if somehow in a perfect parallel universe, all the same people were here, and all the same people coupled, and all the same people procreated, even just the genetic material, like right now, the sperm and the egg, they're tainted, right? And so what would we look like if we had the same exact genetics, but, you know, not tainted to begin with? So yeah. All right. I think that I've got one more all caps here. Do I have any events near Minneapolis soon? Thanks. The closest I'm going to be so far, which isn't super close, is Brookville, Ohio, end of July. And most of you already know, I was born and raised and spent most of my life in Minneapolis. So I might actually be in Minneapolis at some point soon, but not for a conference. So yeah, I would love to do something in Minneapolis, because it'd be a twofer. I could do a conference, and then I could visit my family and friends. So but yeah, keep looking at the events tab, and all the information you need will be on there. So anyway, everyone, this has been a blast. I really didn't know how it was going to work out. I'm always so disappointed at the end of a Taco Tuesday when I've just been focused on my PowerPoint, and I've seen all this beautiful conversation going, and I can't see it, and I can't stop for it and all that. So anyway, I'm really glad that this worked out. I am seeing one more comment I do want to get in here before we go. Second heaven astral abductions, what are they doing to me? Okay. real high level. I talk about this a lot too, if you listen to into podcasts. So what I believe it is, and there might be tentacles to it, but what I think the overall agenda is they are actually targeting people of particular bloodlines, whether you realize you're of a bloodline or not. And I don't mean you have to be a Nephilim bloodline or a Dragon Court bloodline or a Raphaim or a Rh negative blood. I mean, it could be, but I'm talking also like elite bloodlines, the Merovingians, like the Plantagenets, the Tudors, any like royal family, any of the Levitical tribe or from the tribe like of Judah, tribes of Israel. It's kind of a dual thing. On one hand, they're taking all of the people from these bloodlines. There's a very particular personality too that they're looking for. They're looking for particular spiritual giftings, and there has to have that childhood trauma piece in it too, because it is an astral form of trauma-based mind control. It's not the same agenda as MK Ultra though. What they're doing is they are recruiting their family, their bloodline, into the family business. You're going to be a part of this agenda. You are going to be an influencer. We're going to groom and educate you with all of this new age propaganda, theosophy, pre-Aryan Hinduism, the religion of the new world order, whatever that's going to look like. We are going to educate you in all that propaganda. And that's why they're looking for people who are articulate. They have a certain ability to communicate. They have certain giftings. They have the type of personalities where they speak with authority. And this is where you get all these influencers talking about all the wonderful stuff in the astral realm. And these are angels of love and light, and we're star seeds, and the Anunnaki are our progenitors, and they're going to come back for us. And that they are churning out what they hope to be a bunch of influencers to groom and prepare the terrestrial realm for the coming new kingdom false religion. Now, the second part, though, is if you're not compliant, if you say, I do not consent, I don't want to have anything to do with it, I'm a child of God, then they want to make sure that they keep you impotent from using those spiritual gifts for the other kingdom. And so they're going to try to wear you out, keep you tired, keep you riddled with autoimmune, keep you chronically fatigued, torment you, scare you, cause you to call into question your calling or your giftings. They want to keep you incapacitated on the sidelines. So it's one of those, if you can't beat them, join them sort of a thing. And if you don't join them, then they just want to harass you. Another thing, too, I've noticed with people that come from a Davidic bloodline is because there's a promise in scripture where God promises to bring blessing through David's line all the way until the second coming. And so there is an agenda to torment and make impotent and steal, kill, and destroy the spiritual giftings and callings of people from the Davidic line, because that line is going to be blessed until the Messiah comes. That's the line that's going to be raised up. And anyone that the enemy thinks is going to be a thorn in their side in the end times battle, they're going to come after. And sleep paralysis and astral abduction is one of the methods that they use to take out the end times soldiers. So, yes, awesome. Jen Lee, email me, vjaauthor@gmail.com, and we can talk more about that. So, all right, everyone. So as I was saying, I really didn't know how this was going to go. I had a blast. I hope you did too. Thank you so much for everybody in the chat that was contributing and asking questions. And this was a blast. We will definitely be doing this more often. I would say at least once a month we'll do just a Q&A, because this has been super fun. So anyway, all right. Love you guys. Thank you so much for joining. I will see you again next Tuesday. To all of you celebrating Easter, happy Easter. To all of you celebrating Passover and unleavened bread, have a wonderful Passover season. No bickering, guys, no division. The fact is, we love Jesus Christ with our whole heart. We know that he is returning soon. We are all part of the same family. We are brothers and sisters. We have to support one another, love one another. So everyone, no matter what you do in the coming days or weeks, to remember the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ and all he's done for you. Let's just let this be a week where praise and worship and thanksgiving collectively gathers in the ether and raises into the nostrils of our Messiah. So until next week, have a great Easter/Passover.